Most people trying to activate autophagy through intermittent fasting are unknowingly turning it off every single morning. Not because they're lazy, not because they're doing 16 to 8 fasting wrong, but because of one small decision they believe is helping them. Picture this. A 5-year-old man who has been fasting for 18 hours a day for 6 months. He skips breakfast, drinks what he thinks is a muscle-protecting supplement, goes for a walk, and proudly tells his doctor he's optimizing longevity. He's disciplined. He's consistent. He's doing everything the health podcasts recommend. But here's the problem. The very thing he's sipping during his fasting window is activating the growth signal that shuts cellular cleanup down. That means the autophagy he thinks he's triggering may never fully begin. And if you're over 50, when cellular repair and metabolic flexibility already decline, that mistake matters even more. So before we talk about optimizing your fasting schedule or stacking exercise for longevity, we need to understand what autophagy actually is and what truly turns it on. Autophagy isn't a biohacking trend. It isn't a supplement. It isn't something invented by Silicon Valley longevity enthusiasts. It's a built-in cellular recycling system that has existed for billions of years. The word itself literally means self-eating, which sounds dramatic. But what it really means is intelligent cleanup. Think of your cells like small apartments. Over time, broken furniture accumulates. Damaged appliances stop working. Old wiring becomes inefficient. If nothing clears it out, the space becomes dysfunctional. Autophagy is the maintenance crew that identifies what's damaged, dismantles it, and recycles the parts into raw materials your body can use again. When this system works well, your cells stay efficient. When it slows down, damaged mitochondria linger. Misfolded proteins build up, and oxidative stress increases. And here's the part that matters if you're in your 40s, 50, or beyond. Autophagic activity naturally declines with age. That decline is associated with metabolic slowdown, reduced cellular resilience, and increased vulnerability to chronic disease. In other words, your internal cleanup crew doesn't disappear, it just gets slower. And that's exactly why learning how to intelligently stimulate it becomes more important over time. If you truly want to understand autophagy, you need to understand two biological switches that quietly control almost everything happening beneath the surface, mTOR and AMPK. These aren't trendy buzzwords. They are core regulators of metabolism, aging, and cellular repair. mTOR, which stands for Mechanistic Target of Rapamycin, is your growth signal. When nutrients are abundant, especially protein and amino acids like leucine, mTOR turns on. When it's active, your body prioritizes building, repairing tissue, and storing energy. That's essential for muscle preservation and strength. But here's the trade-off. When mTOR is high, autophagy is suppressed. Your cells can't fully renovate and clean at the same time. AMPK come. On the other hand, is your energy stress signal. When your body senses low glucose, depleted glycogen, or increased energy demand, AMPK activates. It tells the system, resources are limited. Conserve, repair, recycle, When AMPK rises and mTOR falls, autophagy begins to build. That's the balance. Not magic. Not mysticism. Just signaling. So fasting isn't powerful because it's trendy. It's powerful because it shifts those switches. Growth mode down. Cleanup mode up. And once you understand that, everything else about intermittent fasting, protein timing, and exercise starts to make a lot more sense. Now let's clear up one of the biggest misconceptions about intermittent fasting and autophagy. It does not flip on like a light switch at exactly 16 hours. It builds gradually. And understanding that timeline changes everything. In the first 8 to 12 hours after your last meal, your body is still processing nutrients. Insulin is dropping. Blood sugar is stabilizing. But you're not in deep cellular cleanup yet. Around 12 to 14 hours. Liver glycogen, your stored carbohydrate reserve, begins to run low. Fat oxidation increases. AMPK activation starts to rise. This is where the earliest stages of autophagy begin to signal. By 16 hours, measurable autophagic activity can be detected in certain tissues. That's real. That matters. But it doesn't mean you've reached maximum activation. Between 18 and 20 hours, autophagic flux increases more meaningfully. At 24 hours, the signal deepens further. However, here's the key point most people miss. You do not need multi-day water fasts to get benefit. Consistency between 16 and 20 hours, practiced regularly, is where powerful metabolic adaptation happens without excessive stress. And yet, right at this critical window, many people unknowingly press the brake. This is the moment most people don't expect. You've made it to 16 hours, maybe even 18. Insulin is low. AMPK is rising. Your body is shifting into fat oxidation. Autophagy is beginning to build. And then you drink something that seems harmless. A scoop of BCAAs. A collagen powder in your coffee. A zero-calorie amino acid mix marketed for muscle preservation. It feels responsible. It feels strategic. But here's the biological reality. Amino acids, especially leucine, are one of the most powerful activators of mTOR we know. And when mTOR spikes, even moderately, the cleanup signal weakens. Growth mode resumes. Autophagy slows. This doesn't mean protein is bad. It doesn't mean supplements are evil. It means timing matters. If your goal during a fasting window is cellular repair and metabolic flexibility, that window must remain metabolically quiet. Water is safe. Electrolytes without sugar are safe. Black coffee, in most cases, appears neutral or even mildly supportive. But leucine-heavy supplements are not neutral. They send a build signal at the exact moment you're trying to clean. And once you see that, your fasting strategy changes. Fasting lowers nutrients. That's step one. But if you want to amplify autophagy without pushing into extreme multi-day deprivation, there's a second lever that's even more powerful when combined, strategically: movement. Not punishing. All out. Breathless intervals. Not marathon training. Moderate. Sustained aerobic activity performed while you are still in your fasting window. Here's why. When you exercise in a fasted state, especially during the final 1 to 2 hours before breaking your fast, your glycogen stores are already low. Insulin is already suppressed. AMPK is already elevated. Now you add muscular energy demand on top of that. You are stacking the same cellular signal from two directions at once. Energy stress deepens. mTOR remains suppressed. Autophagy accelerates. Research consistently shows that moderate-intensity aerobic activity, think a brisk walk at 3 to 4 miles per hour, light jogging, cycling, or swimming for 30 to 45 minutes activates autophagic pathways in skeletal muscle. And when that movement is layered onto a 16 to 18-hour fasting window, the signal becomes significantly stronger than either intervention alone. This doesn't require suffering. It requires timing. If you've been fasting without movement, you've been turning the dial halfway. Add SMART. Fasted aerobic training. And suddenly, the system shifts from passive to active. Now this is where nuance matters. Especially if you're over 50 and concerned about muscle loss, metabolic health, and long-term strength. Protein is not the enemy. In fact, adequate protein intake is critical for muscle preservation, bone density, and healthy aging. The mistake isn't eating protein. The mistake is when you eat it. Remember what activates mTOR most aggressively: leucine. And leucine is abundant in whey protein, large servings of animal protein, and many high-protein supplements. If you break in 1 8-hour fast with a large protein shake or a 1 2-ounce steak, you're sending a powerful growth signal immediately. That signal rapidly reactivates mTOR and can blunt the continuation of autophagy that just began to build. The solution is strategic timing, not restriction. Break your fast with a lighter first meal, vegetables, fruit, healthy fats, perhaps a modest amount of lower leucine protein. Allow the autophagic window to taper gradually instead of slamming it shut. Then, in your second and third meals, increase protein intake to reach a daily total of roughly 55 to 0, 75 grams per pound of body weight. That supports muscle maintenance without compromising the metabolic benefits you just worked to create. This isn't about choosing between longevity and strength. It's about sequencing them intelligently. By now, you can see the pattern. Autophagy responds to signals. Nutrient deprivation is one. Fasted movement is another. Strategic protein timing protects the balance. But there are additional layers most people overlook that can quietly amplify the entire system. The first is sleep. Autophagy follows a circadian rhythm. It naturally increases during the overnight fast when you're asleep. If you eat late at 9 or 10 p.m. and then sleep poorly, you are disrupting one of the most powerful repair windows your body has. An earlier dinner and consistent sleep schedule may enhance cellular cleanup more than another hour of fasting ever could. Then there are dietary compounds like spermidine, found in foods such as mushrooms, aged cheeses, wheat germ, and fermented soy, along with polyphenols like those in green tea, berries, and onions. These compounds appear to activate similar stress response pathways linked to autophagy. And finally, controlled heat and cold exposure, such as 15 to 20 minutes in a sauna at 170 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, or finishing a shower with 60 seconds of cold water, adds mild hormetic stress that further supports the signal. None of these replace fasting. They multiply it. At this point, it might be tempting to think, if 18 hours is good, then 48 must be better. That's a very American mindset. More effort, more discipline, more intensity. But biology doesn't reward excess. It rewards calibration. The principle that governs this is called hormesis, the idea that low to moderate stress strengthens the system, while excessive stress overwhelms it. Autophagy is a hormetic response. When you fast intelligently, exercise moderately, and sleep consistently, you create a controlled stress signal that tells your cells to repair and recycle. But when you push into extreme multi-day fasting without proper nutrition, recovery, or medical supervision, cortisol rise, thyroid output can shift, muscle breakdown accelerates, and the body may enter emergency conservation mode. That is not optimization. That is survival, especially after 50. When muscle mass naturally declines and recovery capacity narrows, the margin for error becomes smaller. The goal is not to punish your body into compliance. It's to nudge it into adaptation. Moderate, repeated activation produces far more sustainable metabolic flexibility than occasional extremes ever will. So what does all of this look like outside of theory? Not in a lab, not in a longevity clinic. In a real American life, with work, family, responsibilities, and limited time. Start with the foundation, a consistent 16 to 18-hour fasting window most days of the week. That might mean finishing dinner around 6:30 p.m. and not eating again until 11 a.m. or noon. During that fasting window, stick to water, unsweetened electrolytes, and black coffee if you tolerate it. No amino acids, no protein powders, no muscle-preserving drinks. 3 to 4 days per week. Layer in 30 to 45 minutes of moderate aerobic movement during the final 1 to 2 hours before your first meal. A brisk walk at 3 to 4 miles per hour is enough. 2 to 3 days per week. Perform resistance training inside your eating window to support muscle preservation and mitochondrial health. When you break your fast, keep the first meal lighter in leucine-heavy protein. Then increase protein in later meals to reach roughly 0.55 to 0.75 grams per pound of body weight daily. Add vegetables, berries, green tea, and spermidine-rich foods regularly. Protect sleep. Finish eating 2 to 3 hours before bed. Consistency, not extremism, drives adaptation. Even when you follow the structure correctly, there are variables that can quietly interfere. The first is insulin resistance. If you've spent years with elevated blood sugar, your body may require slightly longer fasting periods before glycogen fully depletes and AMPK meaningfully rises. In that case, extending to 18 or even 19 hours occasionally may produce a noticeable difference. The second is inconsistency. If weekdays are structured, but weekends involve late-night eating and erratic meal timing, the metabolic rhythm never stabilizes. Autophagy responds to direction over time, not sporadic bursts. Another hidden barrier is undereating. Compressing your eating window without consuming adequate calories and protein can elevate stress hormones, disrupt sleep, and reduce strength. If your resting heart rate climbs, your workouts feel weaker, or you're constantly cold. Your body may be signaling excessive stress rather than healthy adaptation. Finally, medications matter. If you're managing blood sugar, blood pressure, or thyroid conditions, discuss meal timing changes with your physician. Optimization should support stability, not destabilize it. If there's one thing I want you to leave with, it's this: autophagy is not a hack. It's not a trend. It's not reserved for extreme biohackers or people willing to suffer through 3-day water fasts. It is a biological system that already exists inside you. What modern life has done is suppress it: constant eating, chronic stress, poor sleep, and sedentary routines keep mTOR elevated and AMPK quiet. Restoring balance doesn't require punishment. It requires intention. A steady 16 to 18-hour fasting rhythm, moderate fasted movement, smart protein timing, deep, consistent sleep, layered, not extreme. Stress. When applied week after week, these signals compound. Cellular debris is cleared. Metabolic flexibility improves. Energy stabilizes. This is how longevity actually works in real life, not through dramatic bursts of deprivation, but through repeatable alignment with the way your biology evolved. Don't waste another fast by doing it halfway. Don't confuse intensity with effectiveness. Make it intelligent. Make it consistent. And let your body do what it was designed to do: repair.